how to scale content production. Of course, there's lots of talk about this these days, especially now with the with what's happening around AI, ChatGPT, whatnot. So yeah, I'm very excited to tackle this topic with all of you today. So at Crowd Content, this is what we do. We help clients scale their content and figure out a way to create content on a consistent basis that is of high quality, which is very interesting trick to pull. Because when I came to this industry, one of the most fascinating things was like it's very hard to create high quality content at a scale. You can create small batches with very high quality or very large batches but very low quality. Doing both is a pretty neat trick, but we have perfected a workflow and a way to think about it, and it's all about the process. So I'm gonna walk you through this. I hope at the end of the webinar you have some ideas in how to think about your content creation process. We're going to talk about designing your content factory and some tips and tricks that you can use to make your content creation process more efficient. Okay, so why is it important to scale your content production? Of course, today I think all around SEO and really all around content that we're putting out there is more about really high quality than quantity. In the past, you could get away with just throwing a lot of content out there and get rankings, but today it's more about quality content. Nevertheless, because there's so much competition online, and not only on the search engines, but also in any other channels where content, when there's content, right, like social media and even email marketing, because there's more channels and there's more competition, it is very important still to be able to scale your content production. If you want to rank, if you want to be found, it's very important to scale your content production. So of course, it's going to help you increase your position in the search engines rankings. It's going to help you have brand authority, right? The more content you put out there, the more people are going to hear about you, the more, of course, provided that it's high quality content, but people are going to know your name, and it's going to be easier to find you. So you're going to build that brand authority. And of course, you're going to create more organic traffic. The more high quality content you create, you're going to create more traffic from the search engines, but also from the different social channels and also your proprietary channels. So it's very important to scale content production. The other thing that sometimes, especially when we're focused on SEO, and some things that we forget is that we can also use all the content that we produce for our sales enablement portion of our workflow. So a lot of the content that we use for SEO purposes can also be used for sales. So it's very important to scale the content not only for the marketing side, but also for our sales process. So again, very important to scale content production. So now let's get into the meat and bones of scaling content. And this is what we call designing the content factory. So before being able to scale your content, you need to design the process and you need to think through how you're going to scale the content. So of course, what is the first step? You need to set clear goals. What am I doing this for in the end? Is it just for traffic and is it just for ranking? Okay, that's fair and fine, but it needs to be very clear. Or are you looking for brand awareness or become a thought leader in the industry? So you need to be very clear what the goals of your content program is, or what the goals are for your content. So that will dictate how you design the process. So set goals, set clear KPIs, and the second step after you set goals is get aligned or get alignment and buy-in from different teams, because there are different teams that are going to be involved in the content creation process. And you might have received direction from your head of marketing, but also from the sales team, and maybe also some direction from the development team. That is the one that is going to help with the website part of things. So you need to get all the teams aligned on what the goals are and what are you trying to achieve. Then, when you get alignment, when you have your clear goals, you need to identify the roles in your content factory or in your content production workflow. And this is very important because we need to know who's going to be accountable for what. Who's going to be your chief editor, or who is going to be the person in charge of research, who's going to be the person that is composing the content, writing the content, creating the content, who's going to revise the content, who's going to edit it, who's going to polish it. So those roles are very important to be identified prior to trying to scale your content. And I'm talking about roles, not necessarily people. I would start with the roles, what needs to be done or jobs to be done, and then you can feed the people and fit the resources around. Some of these roles can be automated, right? So, but you need to be sure what are the jobs to be done in this workflow. Then after you know that, you set your goals, everybody's in line, you know your roles. Now you start building the workflow. So how is the factory going to work? Okay, first we're going to have research, then we're going to have ideation, then we're going to create briefs, then we're going to send it to the creators, then it's going to come to the editors, then it's going to be quality assured, and then it's going to go to the development team for publishing. That could be a workflow. That's similar workflow that we use on Crowd Content with some of our clients, right? We get ideation or topics, more clients, we build briefs for them, we send to the writers write, send to the editors send to a content manager, they review, and then it's sent for publishing. That's a very simple workflow, but they're more complex workflows when you're, for instance, you have multimedia content. So if you have images, if you have video that is going to go along the writing, you need to think about all those things in your process. Now that you have built a workflow, you need to train the team. How is this all going to work together? Right? You need to teach your creators, you need to teach your editors or people that are part of the workflow how this is all going to work. Then, after you have tested the process, you need to calibrate. Many people fail to do this phase. They think, okay, I designed the process, now let's go 100% and let's pedal to the metal and create the content. And what we always advise is like, do a small test and experiment with your workflow that will help you work out the kinks of the workflow or and identify any issues that will come up. And they will come up for sure, 100%. There is always things that you can tweak and that you can improve. So you need to calibrate the process. Then after you calibrate the process, you figure out, okay, this is now how it should work. And then you can refine the process, right? After you calibrate, you find some of those kinks, some of the issues, then you can refine the process, and then you can start scaling up, okay? You build the engine, you tested the engine for the factory. Now that you're happy with the results, now that you have refined, now you can start scaling. But you're not going to go from producing one piece of content to 100 now overnight. You should start scaling your content incrementally. So go from 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, and so on and so forth, right? It's like you need to let the engine warm up and let these kinks work out over time. Then you need to have a very clear loop for feedback and receive feedback from the process and from the people involved in the process. Okay, so you're always refining, analyze the performance. Okay, are we really meeting our goals with this process? Is this process really taking us to where we want to go? And keep adjusting and optimizing. So this is not a one said and done, right? Because your plans might change. So you always have to be adjusting the process, right? So this is not, it's a never-ending job, but it's very important that you put a lot of planning into it and a lot of thought into creating this process and a lot of thought into refining it. Some of the mistakes that we see is that people create the process, then they just let it run. And then the problems come around and they're just fixing the problem every time instead of going back and fixing the workflow. So it's very important that you're always looking at your workflow. So there are some key strategies and some things to take into account when you're scaling your content. First, of course, strategize. And this is what we just talked about. You have to really put time and thought into planning the process and think, okay, who is going to be accountable, who's going to be doing the job, what are the jobs to be done, and what are the goals that we're trying to achieve. Then you really have to put your time into research, okay? Garbage in, garbage out. If you don't put time to researching your topics, researching the input that you're going to put into your content creation, then you're just not going to create good content. So people need to spend good time up front doing the research for the content they're creating. Now you can ideate, right? Just brainstorm. Now with the use of AI, ChatGPT and whatnot, we can ideate in bulk or in a scale. So you can ask ChatGPT, which is a really obedient assistant. Hey, ChatGPT, give me 100 variations of this topic or this title, right? So you can ideate in bulk. Staffing your process is very important. One of the main challenges that we see clients facing when they want to scale their content production, they usually, and more often than not, understaffed. And their main roadblock to create and scale content is not having enough people that can manage the process and can absorb a higher scale of content production. So again, you need to think about staffing and maybe overstaffing a little bit so you have enough capacity to grow. Also, people fail to calibrate their process. So a good strategy is keep calibrating, look at the process every few months and make sure that it's still working, manage the process. Communication has to be very clear across the workflow, right? It's very important that creators get feedback all the time about the quality bar. One of the things that this is the gasoline, or this is the fuel for creators, is getting feedback. We live off feedback from our clients on trying to understand, are we doing a good job? Is this what you're looking for? So there's got to be plenty of feedback between the owners of the process, then the editors, the content managers, and the creators to make sure that the process is working and that you're getting what you're looking for. Then polish consistently and constantly. So again, we see many clients or many companies, and we help them create this huge inventory of assets, and then you have all this backlog and they're not polishing. So that's just, think about like dollars sitting there because the opportunity cost of not polishing might be very high. You might be missing out on traffic, missing out on leads. So make sure you're polishing, even if it is once a week, a very small moderate cadence, but it's better than not polishing the content that you're already building. And then another very important thing is repurpose your content. I see many teams creating content from scratch every time, and I see many teams that use, separate SEO content, they separate from social media content, they separate from email, but the messaging is the same. It's just the format changes. So we're huge into telling our clients and to recycle or repurpose their content. It's just needs to be tweaked depending on the platform and depending on the channel that you're using. But this will help you really turbocharge your content creation process. And the other advice we give to people is outsource anything that you don't do well or you cannot do well in-house. Just outsource, whether it's the writing, whether it's the SEO work, whether it's the research, data gathering, all that can be outsourced. And now after COVID, there's so many freelance platforms, and there are many other ways to find freelancers or really great talent that you can use for outsourcing some of the tasks that you either can do in-house or don't have the skills to do in-house. So always think about outsourcing as an option across the process. Could be any part of the process. So because there are many options out there to outsource your content creation. So now there's some common problems with content scaling. The main problem is, again, not putting enough time and thought into designing your process. Sometimes people say, oh, I just want to create content. I want to create 100 blogs. Okay, how do you want them? What? Like, how are we going to get all this? How are you going to polish them? How are you going to get the titles, right? Like, and they just want to go, right? And I understand. I'm that way. Sometimes you just want to get stuff done. But trust me, it's worth putting the time in the planning part of your content workflow. Also, the most common problem is having low quality. Okay, like I said at the beginning, creating one piece of content with high quality is easy. Creating lots of pieces of content with high quality is complex and it's hard, and it cannot be done just at the first try. So this is one of the most common problems, having low quality content. Also, lack of consistency. When you have several cooks in the kitchen, you might spoil the soup. What I'm trying to say is that if you have different creators, but you don't have a process that is consistent and you don't have the right guardrails, you're going to get content that tastes very different every time. So your audience and even search engines are going to notice that lack of consistency, which is a problem. And it's very difficult to manage creators and freelancers, especially when you're scaling up. Like I said, if you're managing 1 or 2 writers or 1 or 2 creators is simpler. But if you are managing a team of 30, 40, 50, when you're trying to create hundreds of pieces of content at a time, it becomes a full-time job on its own and becomes a little business on its own. So These are some of the common challenges when you're trying to scale content. Again, you don't put enough time into the process. There's low quality coming out of the process. There's not consistency, and it's difficult to manage all these people. So how can we address some of these problems? So one solution is having a dedicated content manager, and I'm not saying you have to go and hire a full-time person that's a content manager, but somebody in the organization or in the workflow should be a content manager. And it's a combination between a project manager and somebody that is really good at content, right? Because the project management side comes about around managing the whole process, managing the resources. But these people need to know a little bit about content, right? Because it's not just moving the process, it's also understanding what makes good content. And like I said at the beginning, the other way to solve some of these challenges, making sure to calibrate and increment and scale incrementally, not push the pedal to the metal right out of the gate. And this is something that we also try to drill into our client's brain. The more details you can provide the creators, the better the outcome is going to be. So we need to create very detailed project briefs, meaning this is like the general guidelines about all of your content. And you also need to create very detailed content briefs. Of course, our friends here at ClearScope are very well known for helping create excellent content briefs for SEO. But there is a lot of detail that need to go into those. And like I said earlier in the webinar, garbage in, garbage out. So the least detail that you provide, the least your chance of getting good content on the other end. We sometimes some people kind of miss the fact that creators are not mind readers. Then they give a title, very little direction, and then when the final product comes back, they're disappointed because it doesn't meet their expectations. But again, they never set the expectations. So it's very important that you put the work into creating very detailed guidelines for the project as a whole, meaning voice, style, tone, use of pronouns, use of Oxford commas, things like that. And then for each piece of content, you also need a detailed content brief that is going to spell out all the things that you're expecting from this piece. What is the goal? Who is the audience? What are the personas? What is the tone of the piece? Where is it going to be distributed? All these little things can help you create great content. Okay, so there's different ways to create content, right? You can either do it in-house or you can do it or you can outsource. So I want to cover some of the pros and cons of each. So if you do all of your content creation in-house, of course you have more control and you have direct communication. You can just, if you're in an office, you can just walk down the hall and tell your team whatever you want around the content piece, or you can go on and tap your creator on the shoulder and say, okay, I need this piece for tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. And then it is an easy communication. So you have way more control, right? These people are working for you, so they can take your direction. Some of the cons of doing it in-house is you have less skill flexibility. Let's say you have one creator in-house and that person is really good at long-form content, but that same person might not be might not be very good to create video content, or might not be very good to create social media content. So you have more limited set of skills depending on how big is your team or how small is your team. My experience, most marketing teams are really small, even for big companies. Also, it's time consuming to manage the whole process by yourself, right? And manage the people that are part of the process. The bigger the scale, the bigger the team, the more time consuming it's going to be, and tends to be more expensive, because when you hire in-house people, well, you have to pay them a salary, you have to pay them maybe for an office, all the overhead, all the management benefits, all that stuff. So again, more control, but a little bit more expensive and less flexibility in some cases. But there's the flip side is outsourcing your content creation. Of course, the pros of outsourcing content creation saves you time, all this management that has to happen of the process. Surprisingly, it's less expensive. And I tell you why. Many platforms that are dedicated to content creation, this is what they do. This is the only thing that they do 24/7. Whereas if your business, let's say you're in an e-commerce business or you're in a retail business, content creation is not your main business, not your main skill. So for you is not going to be as cost efficient to create content as it would be for people that do it for a living every day of the year. There's increased consistency, but this is provided that you are working with the right partners. There's more flexibility because you can scale up and down. Let's say you have a big campaign, or you're just launching a new site, and there's a lot of work that needs to happen, but then it's going to taper off or it's going to stabilize. So you can scale up and down with outsourcing. If you hire in-house, it's harder to scale down or even scale up. Conversely, with outsourcing, you can do that, and of course, more scalable because if you want to create, let's say, hundreds of pieces, you might not want to be hiring everything internally. You can partner up with a platform or some freelancers that help you scale. Of course, it's not perfect. What are cons? Of course, you're going to have more time back. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know, but you're going to get more time. But of course, you lose some of the control. You cannot just walk down the hall and talk to a team. But I think now with the communication channels that we have today, that is less of a problem because, for instance, with some of our clients, we're part of their, almost like an extension of their team. We have the Slack channels together and we communicate with them on a daily basis. So that has changed a little bit. For getting out of the in-house, out-house, some of the best solutions that I've seen sometimes is a really good combination of internal with external, right? So if you have really good internal editors and content managers, outsourcing the composition of the content, like the writing or the graphics or the video, is a really good solution, like a hybrid solution between insourcing and outsourcing. Now, of course, you need to leverage technology to be able to scale your content. And again, I invite you to incorporate technology into your process, or otherwise it's going to be very hard to scale. We see a lot of people doing it with spreadsheets and Google Docs, but there are many other tools out there that you should use. Of course, ClearScope has great technology to create project briefs, to create content briefs. You can use project management tools. We see many clients using ClickUp, Airtable, Asana, Monday.com. There's a lot of project management tools out there that you can use. SEO tools, of course, SEMrush, Ahrefs, they help you with the research, keywords, ideation, things like that. And of course, our friend ChatGPT, and any of the now hundreds of AI tools that are out there. But yeah, so you can use ChatGPT for ideation, to create drafts, to spin titles or H1s, H2s, create tables as well. And now you can use Midjourney for images. So the message here is there's many tools out there that you should incorporate into the process, and any low-level menial task that doesn't add a lot of value should be always automated. But make technology your friend and incorporate into the process. So how do you find great creators and writers? Of course, this is one of the biggest challenges for companies that are looking to create great content. So you need to, if you are going to do this in-house, you need to have a recruiting process, right? So you need to make sure, okay, what are the requirements of the talent that I'm looking for? So let's say you're looking for writers and you are in one of your money, your life industries. Let's say you're in medical or you're in healthcare. So you need writers that have experience writing in healthcare. Perhaps you need subject matter experts that can byline your content, or that can vet your content or fact check it. Certainly. So you might need people that have an MD degree, or that have a nursing degree, or something like that. Or you need somebody in personal finance or a financial advisor. So it's very important that you put your requirements like any other job. So they need to be very clear. Of course, you're going to interview these people, but especially in content creation, it's very important to get samples of previous work, right? Show me something that you have published before, right? Send me some either a written sample or a video or any piece of content that you are hiring for. And big recommendation is make a test, right? Let's get them to write or to create a couple of pieces for you to see if that's what you're looking for. Where can you find these people? Well, now, of course, there are a lot of freelance platform. Upwork and Fiverr, they're great platforms to find many different skill sets. The only problem is that, sometimes you don't know what you get, right? It might be hit and miss. You get a really good freelancer, a really good creator. Sometimes you don't. So it's hard. So you have to go through several iterations. Now, if you're really serious about content creation, there are content creation platforms that are specialized on content creation, right? So if you go to Upwork and Fiverr, you can find web developers, virtual assistants, everything that you can think under the moon. So there's not a lot of specialization on those platforms. Now, you come to a platform, let's say like Crowd Content, you can find thousands of writers and editors that this is what they do, and the platform is designed for these kind of processes. So if you're serious, I call Upwork and Fiverr the training wheels of freelancing. But if you really want to scale and if you are serious about content creation, you might want to go to more specialized platforms. Now, if you want to search directly, you can go to LinkedIn, Facebook groups. There are many Facebook groups, either by industry or by trade. So there's Facebook groups for writers and editors, for people that are in video, or you can just go to Indeed and post like a simple job. These are some of the tools that we even ourselves in our content platform use to source some of these writers, right? Sometimes we need to source people from very specific industries, so we use LinkedIn and Indeed or industry associations to find experts, things like that. So now that I just mentioned experts, what is the role of subject matter experts or SMEs? And their role is becoming more prominent, especially if you're interested in ranking in Google and if you're in one of your Mind Your Life topics. So, of course, why do you want to use subject matter experts? They're going to help you with EEAT. And remember, that is experience and expertise, which are two different things. And it's very important to differentiate those two. Having the expertise is somebody, let's say, if we're, again, back into the healthcare topic, is having somebody that has credentials around that topic. Now, experience is somebody that has done something around the topic that you are talking about or writing about or making a video about. So again, it's very important that if you are covering one of these topics and you want to really gain authority and trustworthiness in the eyes of Google or the search engines, you bring people or creators that have the expertise and the experience, right? This is where AI falls short, right? People are using AI to compose content. AI cannot bring experience, cannot bring expertise. AI can really create some words, but they cannot have a first person experience. So it's very important that you use your subject matter experts in the process. So you can use it pre-production. So when you're planning the content, these people are going to tell you, okay, these are the topics, these are the things that you want to say, these are the guidelines or this is the outline of the content. So sometimes we have clients that come to us and ask us, hey, can you write about machine learning and how is it used in finance? I'm sure we can find somebody that can write about that, but we need an expert that is going to give us the direction of where the topic should go, right? Or what are the things that we need to cover. Again, if you're talking about taxes, for instance, you really need an expert to guide you pre-production before you start putting pen to paper or before you start to creating a piece of content, because you need that expert direction. Post-production, now you need these people to really vet what you said and to fact check the things that are being said in your message. And you can scale with these people, but there's a myth in the industry that people come for expert creators, and those are rare. And here's what I mean. So when you're looking for healthcare practitioner to write, that doesn't work that well. These people went to school to be trained to provide healthcare, to be a doctor, to be a nurse. They weren't trained to write. So the way to bridge that gap is to pair a really experienced and strong ghostwriter with a really strong SME, right? Because you're rarely going to find a doctor that is willing to write and that is willing to write at an economical, at a cost-efficient way, right? So these people are making thousands of dollars an hour. They're not going to be wanting to write articles for a few $100s an hour. So it wouldn't be affordable, or they just don't have the skills to write themselves, but they have the knowledge and the expertise in the industry. So if you can pair these subject matter experts with really good creators, and I mean writers, editors, or video people. So you can really scale that way using them pre and post production. And like I was saying, I explained is the SME review versus expert content. Sometimes you just need the SME to review and be willing to byline your content, or to put their seal of approval on the content that you're creating. So instead of trying to find an expert that can create content, just create an expert that is willing to that is willing to work with a really good creator, and is willing to work pre and post production. So I'm getting to the end, so we can do some Q&A. But what are the takeaways? And if you can leave this webinar with something, is really put the time and thought into into creating your process, into planning your content creation. Test the process, right? Don't just release the army. Just go do a small test with a small batches of content, so you can calibrate it and you can work out the kinks. Scale gradually. Don't go all in after you test the process. Go little by little until you feel comfortable that you can scale. Leverage technology. Many tools out there today. So do yourselves a favor and find out what are the best tools for your process. And also define a process for finding the right talent, right? Content creation is still an art, and you need to find the right talent to help you scale your content creation process. Use content platforms, right? There is, of course, Upwork and Fiverr, but platforms like Crowd Content or some of our other competitors, you can find great talent, and it's much easier than trying to do everything in-house. And leverage subject matter experts to be able to create content that is authoritative and has expertise and experience. So I'm Carlos Meza, CEO of Crowd Content. I publish a lot of content around content creation and SEO on my social, so feel free to follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter. I also have a couple of resources here. So of course, besides the great content briefs that you can create, get out of ClearScope, you can also use our template to complement those. They have a set of instructions that you can think about to create your content. And we also have a content quality checklist that you can use when you're creating your content. So feel free, those are free to download. So yeah, that's it for me, Travis. So we'd love to take some questions off the floor.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, we have a couple questions, and we'll include those links in the recap email tomorrow as well. So thanks for that, Carlos. And then to kind of kick it off, jumping back to the SMEs section, is where exactly do you find SMEs if they are not at your company? And then what are some tips for kind of brokering partnerships with those SMEs, specifically the ones that aren't writing, you're just kind of wanting them included in the byline somewhere?
Yeah, the $1 million question. So there is a few places where we go. LinkedIn has been working really good for us when they're not in our network, right? We already have an extensive network, but LinkedIn has been great for us. Also, depending on how specific the topic is, we go to in like associations. So there are many every industry has some kind of association where you can go through, where all these experts in that particular topic, they all kind of convene around those associations. Those are the two places where we go the most. How to get them interested in the process, it depends on each of them, to be honest. Of course, they want to be paid for their time, but if you make it easier for them, interesting for them, like, part of that is if they're interested in creating a track record online, this will help them. The more that their name is out there, cited as an expert in your content, the better known they're going to be. So they're going to create their own personal brand awareness by collaborating with you. And if you just make it easier for them, right? If they don't really want to write, just figure out a way for them to collaborate with your content creators.
Awesome. Yeah, that's helpful. And then how often, or do you have like a cadence where you actually revisit existing content that maybe is under poor performing? Is that like on a time period, or is it just kind of when?
So we suggest doing it quarterly. to look at your inventory of content. I think one of the biggest missed opportunities is refreshing your content. Creating new content is exciting, but think about this analogy. Creating new content for people are like basketball. So think about it like this. Creating new content is like the 3-pointers, right? They're really high reward, but high risk. Your chances of making a 3-pointer are less than when you're shooting under the hoop. Refreshing content is like shooting under the hoop, right? Maybe less incremental impact, but lower risk, because you already created the content. If you refresh it, you only have to invest a fraction of the time to make it better, and maybe can take you from the second SERP to the first, right? So maybe just by refreshing, you can move from position. Now, how many positions are in the SERP these days? It keeps changing, but let's say if you're in position 10 on the second page, right? Then just by moving to 9 or by moving from 4th to 3rd, that can be a huge impact on your traffic, right? So just moving one position in the SERP can have a huge impact. So always be looking at what content can you refresh. We do it we internally, for our internal content, we do it quarterly, because otherwise it doesn't make sense to do it more often. For us, you have tons of content, you have a very large inventory of content you already published. Maybe it's a process you want to be looking monthly, but do it no less than twice a year. That would be my suggestion.
Awesome. Yeah, it's super helpful. And I like the analogy with basketball too. And then we got this one from Anonymous, but what are some of your favorite AI use cases, either for yourself or your team?
So I love for ideas. So give me 100 ideas of this. You can ask him for 1,000. You can ask him for 100,000. I mean, now this is for dramatic effect, but but yeah. So sometimes I ask, okay, so we want to talk about this topic. This is my audience. Can you give me 10 different title ideas that are enticing? I can use it to help me write a hook, right? However, I've realized that humans are really much better to writing a hook, because it's emotional and things like that. And sometimes out of the AI comes pretty bland. I like to use it to summarize, like take this piece and give me 5 bullet points or 10 takeaways, or take this piece and create an FAQ, or I want to talk about this topic. Can you create an outline for me? Or your use cases, I have this outline. What am I missing about this topic? And it's a good thing to kind of fill in your process on some tasks that you just don't have the power to. Like the ideation one, I think is super powerful, because it can give you as many ideas as you want. So yeah, those are some of the use cases. I love Midjourney for images that you dream of. You know what I mean? So sometimes you're thinking of something but you cannot quite find the image for it. So if you give it very specific instructions, it might dream it up for you, which is super cool, right? So you don't have to try to explain it to a designer. Or maybe you can use it to draft an image and then get it to a designer to polish it to your liking. But yeah, so those are some of my favorite use cases. Summarization, FAQs, ideation. Yeah.
Cool. And this might be the last question, but when I was checking out your website before today's webinar, I noticed you have like this managed services offering. I was just kind of curious exactly what that kind of covers, entails.
Yeah, so our managed services offering is or premium product or premium service. What we notice is that, again, what we were talking about is very hard to scale, and people don't have neither the time or the resources. So we pretty much take all that process from the client's hands. They come only with direction and some ideas, and then we take everything from soups to nuts, right? So we take those requirements, we assemble the team, we create the workflow for the client. So we resource the team, we train it, we develop the project brief and the content briefs alongside with the client. And we manage the whole process, and we do quality assurance, and we can even publish on behalf of the client. Now we're also doing multi-channel content. So the client only tells us the topic, and when we create blog posts, but then we can create also some short posts for social media, and then we create also a piece for the newsletter. So those are the kind of things that we're doing, and we also bring in SMEs when needed. So we're a full stop content creation shop, and the client only needs to come with some ideas and some direction, and then we take care of the rest.
Now, before we wrap this up, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe so you don't miss out on more great content from the industry's best SEOs, content marketers, and content strategists. The ClearScope webinar series happens every week and helps SEO content creators of all skill levels advance their knowledge. Hope to see you. Tune in next time.